So, Gustavo, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for taking me for this. It's my pleasure.
Good. So, Gustavo, we'd like to go through these 4 questions with you. Just with the first question, you're an MSL. So, explain us a bit. What is the day like in the life for you as an MSL?
So MSL is a different type of activities. It's a field position, first of all. So you have to meet clients, so key opinion leaders or key stakeholders from a company. Usually physicians from a hospital, they are the main focus, but you also meet some private physicians. And you discuss with them different data, usually data that has not been yet published, that hasn't been published yet, or that is recently published, that they don't know about. You present them studies that are ongoing, usually things that are off-label, for example, things that are interesting for them and that the sales reps are not allowed to present.
Okay, thanks very much. That was perfect. What would you say are kind of the pros and the cons of being an MSL? What are the challenges, so to speak, and the highlights of the job?
Let's start with the negative points, which are not so many, I would say. Negative points are, for example, sometimes you travel a lot. That can be sometimes negative, yes, especially if you cover a big area. My first MSL position, for example, I was covering Switzerland and Austria. And if you have to travel a lot in the 2 countries, the 2 whole countries, it can be a lot of traveling and you don't see your family. If you are located in a more specific region, it's much better because you travel a lot, but you can be home more often than if you are traveling more internationally, let's say. That would be for me a negative point. Another one would be to also get access to the physicians. Sometimes they are not interested to meet you because they just don't know you, for example, or they are not interested. So sometimes to get the appointments, it can be a bit difficult. It depends on the approach that you take. And now let's go to the positive things, which I think are more interesting, and I am very positive about being an MSL. I really like it. So the positive would be you are always in touch with experts in a field, and you talk with them and you get to learn a lot from them directly. And these are people who have experience, usually from many, many years. They know everything about the subject and you can learn a lot from them. That's something very positive I see about this. It's a position that has all the advantages of a sales rep without having the pressure of selling, because you're not selling. So sales positions are interesting, are cool, are kind of easy, let's say. You meet people, but you have a lot of pressure with the numbers. As an MSL, you have all the flexibility, but you have also the scientific part, so you don't get bored. That's what I really like. If you have a background in science, a strong background, for example, a PhD, you don't get bored being an MSL because you're always challenged with scientific questions. So you combine these 2 things. That's for me really an ideal position.
Great. Thank you very much.
Okay.
What would you say does one need to be a good MSL? What qualities does a good MSL need?
Yes, I would say, especially if we talk about a country like Switzerland. Of course, this applies for different countries, but a country like Switzerland, I would say the languages. As you know, in Switzerland, there are 4 official languages, but let's say 3 are the main languages, being German, the most important, then French, and then Italian. And of course, English, because the publications are always in English. So if you want to be a successful MSL, I would say that's the first thing you need to have. It's the languages. Some people want to be an MSL being foreigners and they only speak English, and you won't get a job as an MSL. Not easily. I don't know anyone, to be honest, but because you have to speak to the key opinion leaders in their language, being German, Italian, or French. In my case, I speak French and German and Italian and English. I don't speak Italian. But the people in the Italian part, they are very flexible and they speak French or German or English. So that was never a problem, and it's also a minority. It's only 10% of the population in Switzerland. But I can speak in French and German with the majority of the clients. That's, for me, the first criterion you need to have. The second one is to have a high degree, a high scientific degree. Most of the time you see MSLs with a PhD. Sometimes you see some with a master's, but preferred is always the ones who have a PhD, or physicians are also well accepted, because you have to understand science very well. You have to understand science deeply. So if you have done research yourself, you can understand how science is done, and you know about clinical trials. So you can really talk to the physicians like peers.
Okay, perfect. That was great. Thank you. Last question is, what kind of advice would you give someone who's, maybe finishing up their PhD or their postdoc and interested in a career in MSL? What kind of advice would you give them?
To get an MSL position as a PhD or a postdoc, it's probably not super easy because they usually want people with experience. So one advice would be, for example, to get an MSL position in a field where they have experience. For example, if they worked in oncology, they can apply for MSL positions in oncology. They appreciate this background in oncology. That would be a way to get in. That's one. Second one, like I mentioned before, the languages. You have to speak the languages. If not, that's going to be very, very difficult. Another advice, a lot of networking. You need a lot of networking. You need to get in touch with people that are in the pharma industry. It can be MSLs or any other job, because a lot of positions are obtained with networking. And LinkedIn is a great way to do that, for example. You can use LinkedIn for that. And a lot of jobs are also published in LinkedIn. What else can I say? I think that's it. That's the main advice that I could give to someone new on this.
Perfect. Thank you very much.